St. Gabriel's Church was not only a place of worship, but a place of community gatherings, religious services, weddings, funerals, and other events. It was a place to make memories for families that could be shared with friends and neighbors. St. Gabriel's Monastery was home to the clergy who provided support and guidance to their parishioners, who were all neighbors living close by. It was a source of pride to the community with its beautifully constructed buildings and its elegantly designed open space. Members of the community valued it so highly that they requested and supported making it a landmark property so that it would always be a part of the fabric of their neighborhood.
This building had extensive water damage coming through the ceiling.
There was damage to the roof.
There was so much vegetation all around the site.
The wire tie-offs were damaged.
There was debris everywhere.
The wire mesh itself inside the plaster that's embedded, that was damaged. And I'm talking about extensive damage. It was an empty, abandoned building for many years.
In Allston-Brighton, there are 5 landmarks in one architectural historic district. The St. Gabriel's Monastery and Church is a historic site in many ways, including the fact that the very first cattle industry in the New England and American states was here in Allston-Brighton on what is now the site of St. Gabriel's Monastery.
The responsibility of renovating these structures is an exciting opportunity where we get to take buildings that have been here for over 100 years and fully renovate them with a once-in-a-generation type of project. One of the challenges that we had early on was to figure out how we could build both new construction and renovate the church and the monastery and do it in a way that worked well together. One of the groups that we were able to reach out to was Boston Preservation Alliance.
The Alliance became involved in this project when it first was presented to the public back in the spring of 2016. The restoration of the historic buildings on this site are really crucial for the community because they represent a sense of place in the history of the neighborhood and memories for a lot of people.
I'm thrilled that the church is being saved, the monastery is being saved. My kids went to school up here, and my wife went to school here. When I heard that the church was closing, we were devastated, and we thought, what were we going to do? Where were we going to go? We missed everybody in the whole community.
I love working on historic buildings because they tell the story of our past and of our history and of our culture. And renovating these buildings is really fun for an architect because there tends to be a lot of real craftsmanship in them.
Adaptive reuse is one of the best preservation tools that we have. We don't want to make every historic building into a museum. We want to find ways to live in them and work in them.
Which I think actually makes a place very vibrant and exciting, not just historical, but it's the new and the old combined.
Restoring the monastery into a residential building made a lot of sense. It was a monastery, and so the dimensions of the building lay out pretty well for our residential use. Well, the church was built as a community building with high ceilings and wide open spaces. It really didn't lend itself to be anything other than a gathering space.
The restoration of the chapel space has been one of the highlights of the monastery project. So what we did was we removed the pews, we removed the altar, and we found a way to infill back the millwork and keeping some of the decoration.
The way our company restores ornamental capitals and pieces that are damaged either through water, through time and age, and effervescing process. We find an area that we want to recreate. Then we take a plaster and put it on the back side of it. When that's cured and supported with rods and tubes, we take the plaster off, put it on the table, take the rubber off, put the rubber in the mold, and then we recast the new molding out of that setup. And the new molding is made to have the imperfections of all the other things that are around it in the church. We devoted a 2-month time period just of making molds.
Anytime you're doing a historic building, it's always held to a different standard. You're essentially trying to replicate work that craftsmen put in place back in the early 1900s, which is almost kind of a lost art form. The sections of the arches at the north porch will be replaced in the same fashion that they were built. They'll have a masonry backup with a stucco coating.
During the demolition process, we discovered some quadrifoil clover-shaped windows up in the attic space that appeared to only have 3 clovers, but after demo and upon further discovery, there was a 4th clover, which I think is great because it really does bring the building back to its original historic look.
There was a very ornate copper soffit under the roof, and so part of our project was to restore that.
Matching those intricate details on the copper gutter and fascia, that's very important to maintain the appearance of how it was built back in the 1900s.
And they did a really fabulous job. It looks just like the original. The tile roofs in both buildings, which are very distinctive, those were restored. So all of the broken tile was removed, and instead of putting new tile in there that would look slightly different, we were able to find some salvaged tile. At the church, the stained glass obviously is the most prominent element that was restored. All of the stained glass windows were taken out and taken to a shop and re-leaded and put into new frames.
The preservation of more than one building on a site is unique, but what's also unique on this site is that we've preserved the historic landscape and open space that's with those buildings. So we get a sense of what this site was historically and how it was used and what makes it unique.
And these old buildings, which were definitely in bad shape, now have a beautiful new life to them that I think honors kind of what the buildings are and what the heritage of our neighborhood is.
I love to see buildings like this restored and updated for new uses. And a lot of people are very excited about this and think it's just a fabulous design opportunity and so wonderful that we're able to save these buildings.
It's been a great challenge, but anytime you do a project like this, it's very special when you come together as a team and you work towards a common goal and you ultimately get the project done.
Knowing what it means for the community, I think, adds a bigger level of pride and satisfaction.
The look of joy on people's faces when they see that we've brought back an old memory. You know, 50 years ago, so-and-so got married here. Who got baptized here 30 years ago? Those type of memories when people walk back in and their eyes well up, it makes me happy. It's a rewarding thing to do, is to bring back these old buildings, especially ones with such history as this.